Welcome back to On the Record. That means we're at O'Brien and Levine, and my name is Jeffrey Davis. I'm host of Radio Entrepreneurs, also CEO of Mage LLC, management consulting firm, and I'm here with Mark Z from Mark Z Legal Staffing. Thanks, Mark.
Jeff, thank you. We're with the best of the best attorneys.
Yeah, I know you're so excited when you get to talk to attorneys all day long.
Well,
particularly
the creme de la creme.
Well, we're talking about creme de la creme. We must be talking next to Larry Casey from Davis, Malm, and D'Agostine, right?
That's right. Good morning.
And we're going to talk about overtime law.
Right. Okay. So I just wanted to touch base a little bit on the recent change the Department of Labor instituted with regard to overtime. They've increased the minimum salary that's required in order to be an exempt employee from $23,000 and change to $47,000 and change. The impact of that is going to be on a lot of white-collar businesses, particularly smaller businesses, that are used to paying. A lot of people think if you pay the salary, you're covered in the exempt. There's other requirements. So I think there's going to be a lot of businesses there who now have to recalibrate and look at what they're paying their employees. They're going to have to pay them, if they want to be exempt, $47,476 a year in order to fit them within the exempt category for salary. And then there's some other tests beyond that, or start paying them overtime. And as we all know, a lot of businesses, you try to be efficient. So you hire less employees. A lot of businesses have hired people and put them at what used to be the old salary of $23,000 and didn't really concentrate on the other tests and figured they're okay. But now that I think the ante is up and at a higher amount, people are going to be saying, wait a minute, I'm not getting paid what I'm supposed to pay. You either got to increase my salary or start paying me overtime.
Well, what about a type of job, as you were saying, white-collar now jobs for small businesses, where the person works a regular day, so say up to 40 hours, but then takes in calls at night. So you're working at night. In other words, so the person's performing the tasks in the office for 40 hours, but now they're also having follow-up work, making calls, providing other functions, but now technically if they are doing work, but they're not doing it on site, is that considered overtime?
That definitely would be considered overtime. And that would have been considered overtime before this change.
Interesting.
If you're working more than 40 hours a week, it doesn't go 8 hours a day, it's 40 hours a week, you're entitled to overtime, unless you're an exempt employee. And the change that the Department of Labor made goes to the exempt part. What is the standard you have to meet in order to be exempt? If you're exempt, you don't have to pay the person overtime. But they've raised the bar for that as far as what you have to pay in salary. The other tests are the same. Outside sales, if you're doing administrative work, which is work related to the management and business operations, where you have to exercise independent judgment and discretion on matters of significance, then you'd be exempt. Your executive employee be exempt.
So let's say I'm an employee and I'm making $23,000. I think I'm working overtime. My obligation is to tell my employer?
I would say as an employee, you don't have an obligation. If you're smart, you'll be tracking your hours. A lot of businesses who believe they don't have to pay overtime don't track hours.
Right.
They're obligated to track hours. So I would say any employee now who's earning less than $47,000 a year should be tracking their hours if the employer's not, because they can come back and say, I've worked.
What if you're an employer and you ask people to track their hours and they don't track them?
That's the difficulty for the employer. Ultimately, the employer's liable. Regardless of whether the employee tracks, it's the employer that's obligated to track those hours. It's the employer that's obligated to keep those records for, I think it's 3 years. A lot of businesses now, I think, have to take a step back because they also have employees who they've been paying, let's say, $35,000 a year. And if you're saying, I've got employees I was paying less, working them much more than 40 hours, I now have to bump them up. They may have to bump a lot of people up in salary or hire more people and keep people under the 40 hours.
Or track them better.
Well, track them better and keep them under the 40 hours. But most employers, when you're dealing with somebody that's potentially an exempt employee, wants them to work as much and as hard as possible to get the job done because they don't have to pay them overtime.
Right.
Now they may have to, so they're either going to have to compensate for that by hiring more people to get the work done, or you do the math. Is it cheaper to pay them the salary, fit them within the other exemption requirements, or pay them the overtime?